Hello everybody, MightyNifty here, and today we are going to be doing nifty tips, kitchen tips to make your time in the kitchen easier and more fun. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because if you watched my recent review, The Perplexing Orb, it didn't do too well score-wise, and if I did a recipe inspired by that game, I'd probably be throwing up after the video. So, instead, I'm going to give you 5 tips to making cooking more fun. Tip number 1, start simple. Cooking is really fun when you know what you're doing, and if you start off making things like macarons or soufflés, something that seems more complex, then it's not going to go well and you're going to get discouraged. So by starting off with something that you know how to make, something that you've seen a million people make before, something that doesn't have a ton of ingredients, something that doesn't have a ton of actual cooking involved, it should encourage you to keep cooking after that. Tip number 2, start quick. So a lot of my friends don't understand why I like to cook, because they think of cooking and they think, oh my god, it's going to take like a half hour to get all the prep done, it's going to take another hour to get the cooking done, then you got to put it in the oven and you got to wait, it's not worth it to get good food. Burger King I go, it's like $2 and boom, 2 hamburgers like that. But that's not what cooking is. If you know what you're doing, you could probably throw out a meal in like 15 minutes, no problem. Now, if it's your first time cooking, or if you're new to it, then it might take you a little longer. That being said, start with quicker meals, because otherwise you're going to think it's going to take forever every single time you make a meal, and you're not going to want to try new things anyway. Tip number 3, start cheap. I don't know about you, I'm not rich. Maybe if you are, you can ignore this rule. Just go off and ride your horses into a rainbow wherever you bought one. But if you start cheap, then you won't have to worry about if you burn something, if you overcook something, undercook something. If you start off buying scallops, for example, those can be pretty tricky to cook correctly because you can overcook and undercook really easily. And then if you burn them, then guess what? You're out $25 for scallops or something. But if you start off with something like pasta, boom, $1 for pasta, maybe something like a cheap white wine that you can also drink with the meal, and then some butter and spices and garlic, boom, you've got pasta with a scampi sauce. Throw in some frozen shrimp that you just have to defrost. It's really easy, especially when you can compartmentalize. In other words, if you take the more expensive stuff and buy the generic version, then maybe you can spend more money on the cheap stuff that you know that you can cook correctly. So yeah, definitely start cheap if you're just starting out cooking. Otherwise you're gonna think, oh my god, I just spent $60 on this one meal and everything went to hell. Tip number 4, start familiar. This is probably one of the most important things on this list. You have to start with foods you know. Otherwise you won't know if they taste great. If, for example, you have never had takoyaki or octopus before, how are you going to know if it tastes good? If you've never gone to a restaurant and had Indian food before, how are you going to know that your curry doesn't taste like somebody's shit instead of just, well, look like somebody's shit? Start with something that your mom made. Start with something that you grew up eating. Start with something that you know when you taste it, whether or not it is delicious. Tip number 5, just start cooking.
Just do it!
This is the most important tip, because a lot of my friends, they're like, I wish I could just start, but you have to buy all these ingredients, and oh my god, then you have to buy a pot and a pan. I am going to do another Nifty Tips video in the future describing the 10 utensils you could have to cook 90% of meals. But in this case, you just gotta get out there. You just gotta buy something. I mean, for fuck's sake, buy some bread, peanut butter, and jelly. Make your own sandwiches for lunch. Just start making stuff. And then eventually you'll just start adding a bit more. Maybe you'll get a bit more creative. Maybe you'll throw bananas into that peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Would that taste weird? That tastes weird. Anyway, just start cooking, because as soon as you start to understand where spices come from, what tastes good with this, not to throw your herbs in at the beginning because they'll burn, stuff like that, you will start to love the end product and you'll start to see how easy it is. What I'm saying is, if you don't get started today and you say tomorrow you're gonna cook because, oh my god, it just takes forever, and oh my god, it's so expensive, and all this other shit, you're lying to yourself. And honestly, the number one thing that got me motivated to learn how to cook was to lose weight. And for me, it actually worked. In progress. But for you, it might be something different. For you, it might be that you love your wife or your girlfriend or your husband or your boyfriend, and you might really want to cook them a special meal on Valentine's Day. Or it might be that you have kids that are coming and you want to make sure that they don't eat like takeout crap every week, that they eat healthy. Whatever your reason is, you gotta start learning to cook today. Next week, I will be back with my review of Super Mario 3D World. Until then, everybody, have a mighty nifty day today.